All right, well, I just want to welcome everybody to this webinar, first of a series that we'll be doing with Amalgama called How We Built This. Today we're speaking to a group of brilliant entrepreneurs from wine country out in California, the El Dorado Winery wine region to be specific. Apologies for it being this early. We should all be enjoying a glass of wine together. I wish we were. Or we can fake it anyway. So I'm Travis, head of growth at Amalgama. I'm in New York City, and I'm speaking with Kara, Lexi, and Russ at El Dorado Wine Association out in El Dorado, California. I believe you're all in El Dorado. Maybe you're not.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kara, I'll let you kick it off. You could tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are.
Sure. So yes, I am Kara Sather, and I'm the executive director of the El Dorado Winery Association. And from a geographic standpoint, that's located near Placerville, California, which is between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe. So the other members that are here, I'll let them introduce themselves. Lexi, if you want to go ahead.
Sure. My name's Lexi Boger, and I am the past president of the El Dorado Winery Association. And it was during my presidency that we sort of started this project. So that's my background on it. My family's been in the wine business since 1972 in Placerville and 1860s in Napa. So just a family winemaking history there. So that's my interest in the association.
Amazing.
Yes, I'm next. I'm Russ Reyes, and I have my own digital media company as well as a event production company. And I came on this project as their internal project manager to help kind of be the tech voice for them. I've got a background in web design and web development. And so that was my role within the project, but we're all here in El Dorado. So it's a cold, rainy, soon to be snowing day here where we are.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to paraphrase too much your mission, but you have built a digital platform to support the region, the wine region, which you are all obviously very passionate about the land and about the wine that's being made there, and clearly a digital product made to reach people, to create awareness, and to help have the region become more further discovered. And tell us a little bit about the mission of the El Dorado Wine Association, and what was the moment, or what was the circumstance that gave the idea to pursue creating a digital product to support it?
It started back when Lexi said when she was president. And Lexi, do you want to speak about that moment we're watching the Silicon Valley Bank?
Yeah.
You take it away.
Yeah, for sure. We've actually been tracking, prior to the big idea that we got for this, we have been watching declining attendance in events. And events is our primary revenue generating source. So in the last 10 years or so, we've just sort of seen trending down, because I think there's just a lot of competition in the marketplace for that kind of a thing. So we were looking for alternative revenue sources already. And then in 2020, Silicon Valley Bank came out with a state of the wine industry report. They're sort of the primary trackers of the market and where it's at. They get a lot of data feedback from the wine industry. So they've got the numbers to talk about it. And it was kind of a shocking, forecast, saying that after 26 years of pretty incredible growth in the wine industry, we are looking at kind of a flat line, maybe 2% growth projected for the foreseeable future. And the main reason is because boomers who have driven it are aging out, and that really the market size is completely tied to the number of people over 21 in the market. So what they're basically saying is, because there's not as many X-Gen or millennials as boomers, there's really no way to expand the market. And worse, millennials were shown to not be engaging with wine. So we had two problems. One is we just needed to maintain market share just to stay at a regular growth rate. And if we didn't start to reach those younger markets and get them engaged, we were going to see diminishing returns. So it really got us thinking about how do we be more accessible to those generations, Millennial and Z, and by talking to others in the industry and in other industries, subscription services, more online access, and even more so being more diverse than just showing wine. This generation doesn't go wine tasting all day long, so they want to see other stuff. So that kind of gave us the brainchild to present the entire region as something they could join, and not just come up and enjoy it, but they can enjoy it online. So that was the basic impetus of starting to look at this.
Yeah, amazing. So, talked a lot about the problem and the problem you're trying to solve. How did it come together with formulating the solution, and what was the aha moment that the solution was something, as you said, to reach a younger audience, that it would be a digital platform or an app, or what were those early concepts?
So I think early on, we had actually looked at it internally as an app. That's what we had wanted to do. And we actually had an initial iteration that was not really working for us with a software platform that sort of offered what we needed with a subscription service, but it wasn't really delivering exactly what we needed. It was missing a lot of components. So that's when we decided to take a look at how can we develop this and really create something that gives that younger generation the experiences that they're looking for. Not only are they, wanting, as Lexi referred to, the fact to go wine tasting, maybe do something else, they want the experience of it. It's not just wine tasting, going home. What else can we do? And so that's when we really started diving deeper, tried it on our own, and realized we needed to figure out how to do this a lot better.
Yeah. Interesting. I think a lot of entrepreneurs can empathize with sort of that moment of we can do it ourselves, we can bootstrap, we can make this happen, and then realizing it's
not going to happen.
A lot more challenging than we think it is.
Yes.
Which kind of leads me to what happens, I think, in that life cycle for entrepreneurs and yourselves, about just now you've got to go get buy-in from everybody. Right. I know, Lexi, you were saying you were the head of it, and then and you were working with Kara, and then somehow you convinced Russ to join. But obviously the whole region needed to buy in, as well as other support people in your network. So you could tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Sure. Well, as we were looking at this and trying to figure out what we could do, we did bring Russ on board because he could, he can speak wine terminology, wine language. He's very, has a long history in the wine world, as well as he had the more technical background that, we did not have. So he was brought into the project at that point. And then that's when we really started looking at funding sources as well. How are we going to make this happen? Did you want me to speak more about the funding or more about Russ's?
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess I'm also curious. Yes, I do want to speak about funding in a few, but I'm also curious how you got the buy-in from the region and from the winemakers and from the association to move forward with a project like this, considering that all the changes that Lexi had just identified and all the problems that she had identified, and how you sold it internally to everyone.
So I think, Lexi can speak a lot about that because she was the president at the time, and she is a great visionary. So she has incredible sales skills too.
Yeah, and that's what it takes. So I think we started with, and it was during COVID. So everyone was freaking out, and all the wineries were, locked up at home. And our region is generally smaller businesses, almost a lot of mom and pop. So to get them on board with this big concept took a little bit of doing. So we did do an internal webinar like this, where we brought all that Silicon Valley Bank data and graphs, and showed them really the roadmap of where we were going and what needed to be done, and gave them the data to support the confidence that we needed to make a change. But and Russ could probably speak to this. I'll lead into that for you, Russ, is how to communicate how this platform is going to do it. But I think with a lot of these wineries, they have to see it built to understand what we are thinking of. Russ, you're more the one who had to explain what it was going to look like.
Yeah, so in the early days, I used Figma, which is kind of funny because that's one of the main tools that Amalgama uses, to just do a mock-up of what I envisioned the app doing for El Dorado Winery Association. And it was a very simple, people become emotionally attached to things when they can actually see it and feel it and touch it. And so rather than giving them the overview and just kind of describing this thing, I knew if we're going to sell it, if Lexi's going to sell it, they have to see something. It's got to be something they can see and touch and move. And so basically that's what we did. With Kara and Lexi's feedback, we built just kind of a stick figure with some images, mock-up of what this thing could look like and what it could do. And basically, I think she used that tool then to show it to the rest of the association to get their buy-in on it.
Amazing. And I think all entrepreneurs have that sort of fear of that Shark Tank moment that's become, sort of the shorthand in our culture. Lexi, what were those pitches like? And I'm sure they were received with all different kinds of reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we would cater the message to the listener for sure. I think there's a lot of aspects to this program that businesses of all different sizes could sort of relate to. For a winery who's sophisticated with their marketing and promotions, I think they could immediately see how it could drive revenue and foot traffic on a larger scale, both in person and online. So I would speak more to those capacities in the program for them. For maybe some smaller wineries who are just more interested in having a nice image out there, we could talk about how this just really is presented very well. It's going to be marketed to the market they're trying to hit and be really catered to show their unique character. So I think there's so many facets to this final product that Amalgama made that we had ways that we could really cater the message to different business models, because we've got extremely diverse business models from really tiny to really quite big. So it took some catering to the unique.
I bet I can only imagine, and it's certainly it's portrayed on TV, as I mentioned, like Shark Tank, but it's not as glamorous or quick as those types of situations to get that buy-in. I think before I go into funding, Kara, I think it would be great to give some context about the El Dorado wine region. I think most listeners are familiar with Napa, familiar with, maybe the Finger Lakes regions, or, my partners at Amalgama in Argentina obviously know Mendoza very well. But I think it'd be good for our listeners to get a little bit of an understanding of what the landscape of the El Dorado region looks like, who its audience primarily is, and because I think that'll give a little more of a visual of what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to build. Because I think most of us think of Napa as the Disney World of wine, and why would you need to even do anything? So that would be, you could give us a little insight on that.
Okay, so El Dorado wine region, we are not Napa, but proudly different. And where we are located, as I sort of explained before, we're actually in the foothills of the Sierra Mountains. So our region, because of that, we have what we call high elevation wines. We grow over 70 commercially produced varietals in elevations up to 3,500 feet. And we have incredible different terroir here, meaning the combination of the weather, the soil, the elevation really gives us this opportunity to produce all these different wines and produce it really well. It just produces these little microclimates which cater themselves to different varietals. So what we do here is we have absolutely beautiful, outstanding wines, but you can, and when you come to El Dorado, you can literally taste wines from, all different kinds of regions, meaning we've got Spanish varietals, we've got Italian varietals, we have Rome varietals grow amazingly well here. And then we've got some of the more traditional California varietals that aren't as popular otherwhere, such as Zinfandel and Barbera. So it's really a fun and engaging place where you can come taste these beautiful wines. And because of our location, we have incredible outdoor activities as well, such as whitewater rafting, or you can go horseback riding and wine tasting, or hiking. We've got, we're close to Lake Tahoe and the Desolation Wilderness, which has this incredible, hiking. So it's just really a fascinating, incredible place for people to come visit. And from a historical standpoint, it's where the gold rush happened. Gold was actually discovered, in El Dorado. Just, one of our wineries is only a mile away from where it was discovered. So we've got a really rich history here as well.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really incredible. So let's talk about funding, which is the bane of every entrepreneur, is where am I going to get the money from? We've all seen the memes of the entrepreneur life cycle, and I think the falling down on the ground part of the meme is, not getting funding.
Yeah.
I of course am in the know. I know where you got your funding, and I think it's really unique. But not only curious about how you were able to accomplish that, but how it came to you as the solution for your funding versus the traditional methods of friends and family funding or VC funding, et cetera.
So for our funding, what we ended up doing is applying for a CDFA grant, which stands for the California Department of Food and Agriculture. And applying for a grant is not an easy process. It took a lot of work, a lot of collaboration with a number of different members. Lexi was instrumental. There was myself. We have an accountant who was, helped us work out all the numbers. And we went through a couple different rounds of submitting more information till we got the approval. So that is, basically how we did it. Lexi, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, to answer the part of the question about how did we land on the USDA funding and not something else, I think particularly it's difficult for a producer association because I don't think that people see it as something that needs funding. I think they see a bunch of wineries and are like, oh, you guys should be able to handle it yourself. But the difficulty is that our wineries are very small family wineries. So trying to raise the revenue to do this on membership dues, it was just out of the question at the scope that we needed to be at. So really for a nonprofit, government funding, it was the easier way to go because there's just so many programs set up. Also being in California, agriculture is just such a high priority that we felt that we had a good chance to get this grant. And the California agriculture industry is also seeing the same impacts that the wine industry was seeing. And that is, how do we keep farming viable through these demographic changes and going forward? So I think we felt that we knew we could take this idea and convince USDA that this is something different that nobody's done before. We did go to the very last date before getting awarded, and they kept asking us for more and more clarification because I think it was a very new idea. But we just kept on it because our feeling was that if this can work for our region, this can work for agricultural regions all over California. And I think that's what they're waiting to see. And I think that's why they funded it, is we're a bit of a test case here on this solution.
Wow,
yeah.
Well, great opportunity, but a lot of pressure at the same time.
Oh yeah, no pressure.
Without a doubt.
At all.
One of the things I'm curious about, and I experience this a lot, one of my favorite things about my job at Amalgama is I speak to entrepreneurs all day, and of course we talk about funding all the time, and entrepreneurs are always so torn, right? In traditional senses, giving away equity for funding, giving away certain controls, giving continually giving little pieces of your vision away in order to secure funds. Since, you know, the type of funding that you have done is probably foreign to most of our entrepreneurs listening. What were there? Are there a lot of restrictions? Are there a lot of limits or rules or things? Obviously, they didn't take. I'm assuming they didn't take equity in what you've built, but I'm sure it comes with. A lot of stipulations.
There are definitely some guidelines that they set forth that you have to follow, and a lot of that is set out when as you apply for it and you keep having to provide more information, you're kind of creating the guidelines and the timeline at that point of how you foresee this happening. So we did have to, and as you go along, you constantly have to report to the CDFA, which reports to the USDA, on where we're at, what we've accomplished. Are we meeting the goals so far? If anything changes, you have to get all the vendors pre-approved. So it's very much micromanaged by the CDFA. And so you're constantly having to report in, and the way the funding works, you do have to have at least some seed money to get it going, because they reimburse you on what you pay out. So for your first initial startup costs, to get it going, you do have to have that funding available. Then they reimburse, but they're always a month or two behind the process. So you're constantly having to keep the cash flow intact as you wait for the reimbursement as well.
Wow, yeah, interesting.
Can I add something to that?
Oh, go ahead, Russ. I'm sorry to cut you off.
I just wanted, because I know this is for entrepreneurs, Travis. I just think that the EDWA use of a grant is something that's really underutilized and underexplored by a lot of entrepreneurs. There's so many grants that are offered by government levels as low as county, all the way up to national. And I think that it's probably not the first place that entrepreneurs will look for money, but it's a really great way for them to get funding, especially if they're in groups of people like women-owned businesses, minority-type businesses, veterans, things like that. There's a lot of money out there that is being offered for these people to start a business and chase that vision. So,
yeah, I think that's really great advice, and something for sure for entrepreneurs to take a look at. And you're right, it isn't the first source. I imagine because it feels a little scary, right? As you mentioned, there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of things to go through. What I was going to ask Lexi, and I think now that Russ, you planted the seed that maybe look at grants. How is success measured? In this situation, obviously, traditional investors look for return on investment. What is the metric for measurement for this type of financing?
Well, and I was exactly going to say that too, is USDA's pound of flesh that they do take is that quite a bit of your budget has to go to benchmarking, tracking, reporting. They want to actually see what the impacts are to the industry, to the crop itself, to the partners, to justify the investment that they've made. So there's quite a lot of work that goes into that. So which, on the other hand, it's going to be very valuable for us to track how it's working, and then to give that data also back to the individual producers as well. So yeah, that's a big piece of it is, so we've got different providers that have done surveys. We have consumer surveys to get a baseline of where the market awareness is for the brand. We've also got financial data from all the wineries as a benchmark. What's your current foot traffic? What's your current incomes? And then we will track this over the period of the grant and be able to show increases in revenue, foot traffic, and consumer awareness through these different studies. We also built into this platform the ability to sort of, through the internal analytics, see consumer behavior on each of the different offers that the wineries are doing. So they're putting events, deals, and different things, and we can really track and see what people are interested in. So this is also great feedback in terms of consumer behavior to give back to the wineries as well. And we can give all of that back to USDA, because I think this is what they're looking for, because if they can see where and how it works, this is something that small ag regions all over the state could, or actually any tourism destination area could use this concept.
Yeah, for sure. I can see that. So segueing from that, right, and the product or the project, you know, you at this, right, we've talked about your funding, and then you're going to actually make it, right? And, you know, we're talking about today is how you made it and how you built it. Had any of you had experience with, I'm assuming, Russ, maybe you did, since you know how to use, you launched into Figma to do some, you know, some initial pitches. Had any of you had experience with building a digital platform before, or a digital product before, or was this completely the Wild West?
It was definitely the Wild West for us. Russ had some more experience, and that's where he came in as our internal expert in that field. So Russ, I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, it's something I've done for years as far as web design, web creation, front end, back end of it. I come from a family of people who are like my eldest son is also a designer, and he's worked for some big corporations. And actually, it was through his reference that we ended up finding you. But that's probably another story. But yeah, I felt comfortable helping them with this project. One, because I'm invested in this region as well. I've lived here for a long time, and I actually did Kara's job a long time ago. I was the executive director, and through my business and my own business, work with a lot of these wineries. And so for me, it was personal as well to help these amazing wineries get known, just get out there. And so it was a natural for me to just kind of help out. And like she said, I speak wine, and that, I think that kind of was a little important at the beginning, especially because, people that are in the digital world don't necessarily see the issues that are in the physical world of the client they're helping. And I do have to tell you, Amalgama, though, and when we talk about how we selected them, they did have one feature that was really what sold it for us and made us go in that direction. So,
well, I of course I'd love to ask you about that, but I am very curious about how you went about finding and selecting a digital agency to work with.
Well,
what were some of
yeah.
the qualifications you were looking for? And lastly, very curious if obviously your source of funding had any say or requirements for the agency that you chose as well.
Yeah, the source of funding was a key component, because with the grant, you have X amount of dollars and that's it. It's not like there's going to be more. And within that, Kara and Lexi both alluded to the fact that it's not just the money there to build the platform. There's also money earmarked for marketing. There's money earmarked for the metrics. And so that pie is split up, not evenly even. There's different components have different amounts of dollars allocated. And so long story short, we went to 7 different companies around the globe. Some of them were recommended from sources, like I said, one, came from recommendations to here. So some of them were just found based on their ratings online. But we had, companies in China, a couple in like the Balkans, of course, you guys in Argentina, and a couple in the United States. And once all the bids came in, I kind of vetted them. I looked at them all. You asked kind of what we were looking for. Mostly I was looking for a company that would take the time to understand what Edwin needed. And that wasn't always the case with a lot of digital creators out there. They have a very linear way of thinking, and so they just kind of lay it out. This is what you're going to get because this is what you're asking for. Ultimately, when we sat down and narrowed it down to 3 different agencies, I believe Amalgama was one. We had one in the United States, and we had one in China that seemed a little bit more engaged. But what it all boiled down to at the end was Amalgama went through what they called an exploration phase, to where they just wanted to see if this thing was going to be viable, and explaining to Kara and Lexi and then the rest of the board. It's going to cost a little bit more upfront to get through this phase, but it's so key because if they come back and say, after all of our research, this app is not really viable, it's not something that's going to, I mean, we'll build it if you want, but it's not something that you need this. That's what ultimately sold it for us. And I think that piece of how we build it and how you guys helped Edwa build it was the difference. And I mean, you know, Kara, Lexi, you guys can kind of speak to that if you want, but that's ultimately what got us to where we were working with Amalgama.
Yeah, that's really great to hear, Russ. I mean, as you know, working with us, that, you know, that discovery phase or discovery process, as we call it, is something that we are very, very proud of, but also very insistent on, especially working with entrepreneurs. You know, I'll say it on this call, I was a client of Amalgama prior to becoming part of Amalgama, and I was resistant to the discovery process myself, felt I knew everything. I've learned that I didn't pretty quickly once I began the discovery process. So would love to, you know, Kara, Lexi, hear a little bit more about that, and if there wasn't any resistance, or you know, what that experience was like for you.
Oh, I would go ahead.
No, if you want to take it, go ahead.
I would love to just rave about what it meant to see that description of that discovery process, because I'm an artist and a creative and a graphic designer, and my biggest frustration in my whole life has been working with businesses who are resistant to the creative process. There's a lot of fear in people when you do that. And so when I saw that they realized how important it is to be critically thinking and to brainstorm and to dig deep into why we do things, I was very excited because this told me that they don't just have the technical ability to build something functional. They have the creative awareness that you've got to take all the human components into things and go through that creative process and be able to change your ideas and be fluid instead of fixed. So to me, that was the number one most exciting thing, because some of the other proposals that came in were just very cold and fixed in their proposal, whereas Amalgama has not only described just a dynamic process, their whole presentation of it was also very dynamic and beautiful, engaging. So they were also communicating, we understand the importance of also presentation and the ideas behind it in some of those intangibles. So to me, that was the most impressive thing about it. And sorry, Kara, I cut you off because I know that was a perfect segue, because what I wanted to just add is that discovery process actually made a huge shift for us, because when we first, you know, had planned this, as I said, it was going to be an app. And through that process, as Amalgama reached out to potential end users and did some, you know, discovery with them, it was determined that an app is not what we needed. We need something that was more web-based. So that was a huge shift for how we had been thinking about the product and how it ended up, you know, ultimately being, you know, produced, is moving it from an app-based to a web-based, because what the product's going to do is, you know, allow people to research where they want to go when they come here, all the different things to do. And they want the option to be able to do that both not only on their mobile phone, but also on their computers.
Yeah. You know, which I want to take a moment to you know, ask you, but also to let you plug the region, and for anyone, you know, listening to this live or future recordings, what does the platform do, and where can they look at it, get it, all those things?
Sure. So the platform, you can find it. It's now become our website. So it's eldoradowines.org, and you can go check it out. And I mean, ultimately, what it was, you know, was designed for, as you know, we had referred to earlier, is we realized we needed to increase revenue for the Dorado Winery Association, and whose whole goal we are is, you know, to market the region, to have, you know, build awareness. And by being able to have this app, not only do people join and become insiders of the Eldorado wine region. As an insider, they are given the opportunity to have these other experiences that we have in a region, like whitewater rafting, you know, of course the wine tasting, but everything else that I mentioned earlier. When you join, you get these different experiences, and some of them that are curated specifically for people that are becoming outsiders. And I shall refer to Lexi because she's been in charge of that whole content of really what it's doing for us.
Yeah, basically we're offering a couple of different levels to the consumer. It's free to use the website. Obviously, it's a basic informational. It's set up like a visit a region platform. So where to stay, what to eat. All of our partners are featured in there. But like Kara's saying, the subscriber, it's $10 a month to become a subscriber, which then unlocks access to different, sometimes it's an online offer or a special event. Some are extremely exclusive to that subscriber. And then the last layer, which Amalgama really helped us understand the value of, was that we are also doing an actual wine club subscription within there as well. So they can get a sampling of regional wines quarterly or however often we end up doing them. So it's kind of like the idea of being a wine club member, but to an entire region, and not just the wineries, but to the partner restaurants and other activities and things. So it's very robust, and it's going to be a high value platform, even if you don't subscribe. And that was very important. We're not just trying to pigeonhole people into that, but and again, with Amalgama's insight to really show a lot of those insider options kind of grayed out. So there's just all these opportunities for people to see what the added values are. So yeah, it's pretty robust, and for the user of every level, I think that they can engage pretty well with the region.
Yeah, it really, it's a great tool, especially for someone who's not from the region and really looking for that, I call it tourist adventure, right? Or for the real, passionate wine lover who's looking for a new region, new place to visit.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very cool. So let's fast forward a little bit. We talked about the discovery process, and obviously, went through prototyping and beta testing and getting those things, but now you're launched. You're launched. You described the platform for us. How is it going? How is it going? How has it been received by those early stakeholders or decision makers or people you need to get buy-in from? How is it all going?
Well, yeah, we just launched it just 2 weeks ago. Yeah, Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That's right, on Thanksgiving.
A week ago.
So it's still pretty fresh out there, and we're doing a soft launch right now. We're not doing the big marketing push yet, so we make sure everything's working. And so far, it's just absolutely beautiful. It's everything we really could have wanted. The final product, I think it actually delivered above what our expectations were. Through the whole collaborative process and working with Amalgama, they're just really were able to provide additional insights into maybe you could add this feature here. And it was just such a fantastic collaboration working with the team at Amalgama to produce this product. It's just been outstanding so far. Wow. I don't know, Lexi or Russ, if you have anything to add.
Well, I'll describe our first entry into the atmosphere here. It's been pretty smooth, but like Kara said, we thought we would do a big announcement and a big launch as soon as we came out. But what we learned, and I think we hadn't really expected this, is there is a learning curve on behalf, not the end user, but the winery user. So all of those businesses that have to learn how to create their profile, create their events, come up with the right kinds of offers, takes a lot of training and support from us for those businesses. So what we feel more comfortable is that I think we're just going to take a soft launch here for a month or so to just make sure all of those partners feel comfortable in how they're presenting themselves and curating the right content. So we've already got some really, there's always the early adopters who they get it and they're putting fun stuff out, but we'd like to get the whole group just kind of up to speed. So and it's nice, it's winter time right now, there's not a lot going on. So it's actually a perfect timing for us to get everybody familiar with it, get them excited, and then we'll do a more official launch mid-January. So we're sort of enjoying this time of learning. So it's good, and we haven't had any problems. Every partner that we have, made administrators of their own profiles are just, I'm not even having to give them a tutorial. They're going in there and it's so intuitive that they, they're able to really do it. Yeah, it's good.
So really having those early adopters, that's fantastic. Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
I will ask, as we're getting closer to the end, as entrepreneurs, we're in it because we're all dreamers. I know you're just getting soft launched and getting going and all these things. What does the future look like for this product? What is version 2 or 3 or 4? What do you think? I see, Lexi, you're smiling. You already have a million ideas. What does it look like?
Well, I think we're very happy with what it is. So I think if we never get more funding and we just have this, I mean, we're more than thrilled. But all of the things through discovery and the whole process that we had to kind of choose to leave behind in order to get the core product, we're still into those things, and I think that we can really see the icing on the cake if we can build out more and more value into it for the consumer. We'd like to get there. And the other encouragement to entrepreneurs who are looking at grant funding is, especially with the government grants, USDA likes to fund the same project to a second phase usually. So I mean, it's a big process. I'm supposed to not commit myself to stuff, but it's already too tempting if we start to get good data to show that it's successful. A round 2 of funding to really push it over the top is something that I think we would be, I think we'd have a good shot at getting another same grant, specialty crop block. So I'm hoping that we could do that.
Yeah, we'll be hoping for you. Russ, anything on your end? Any long range vision or dream you're thinking?
Yeah, certainly. I think with regards to the region, having the specifically the subscription component and the wine club component really make a difference within the app and within the region. I'd really like to see both of those components become a major factor with this and kind of drive people not only to the region, but like Lexi said, you can be in New York and still experience El Dorado through that process, through the wine club and through different aspects. And so, yeah, I think big picture and at least dreaming, I'd really like to see specifically those 2 components of that really just take off. It'd be great.
Yeah, it sounds like very interesting, very intriguing.
Yeah.
Kara, how about yourself?
I think Lexi and Russ pretty, covered a lot of it, but yeah, we're just looking forward to seeing it grow and it develop, and getting, building the whole insider thing. We really want to create this sense of community with it as well, where people feel like they're part of something special in our region. You're getting the inside scoop of what's going on. You're getting access to different opportunities that the general public wouldn't. Whether, in the future, we've got special winemaker interaction engagement plans, and we're doing them both virtually, as both of them refer to. You can be anywhere, that we can actually ship wine to. We can do virtual tastings. So it's really an opportunity for us to grow the region and see the product, really help us develop that. So it's very exciting at this point.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to, I don't know if we have any questions from any entrepreneurs who are viewing. In the meantime, what I would want to ask is all 3 of you, each individually, if you have any advice for entrepreneurs who want to build something, who are in that early stage, having those sleepless nights, trying to think about, boy, I see there's an opportunity. Do I have the guts? Where do I get the funding? How do I get started? How do I find partners? any advice for your fellow sleepless entrepreneurs?
I would just say, because these two have some really good advice. Mine is more, don't wait for the right time. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are always, well, I'm not ready yet, or it's not the right time, or, you know, if I just did this, or if I just had that. And I think that's like a huge block. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And I think just doing it, just do it. And you'll be surprised how resources will then start appearing when you are in the process of making something happen and building something. It's like, you just have to have faith that it'll happen. And if it doesn't, then that's also a good time to pause and think, okay, well, why didn't I get the funding, or why didn't, you know, where can I fix it to where I can keep moving? But just don't wait. You just got to do it. You know, just do it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. That's great. That's great advice. That's great advice.
Yeah, I would echo Russ on that too. Take the risk, you know, because you're not going to burst into flames, and go until you fail. And if you don't fail, then you've got it, you know. So yeah, I mean, just to completely, if you believe in your idea, in your gut, that it is good, then like as Russ is saying, don't wait, and do it.
And I think I'd add to that too, not only don't wait, but don't give up. I think when you look at the life cycle of entrepreneurs with different ideas, you see that you've got this great idea, you launch, you see some success, and then there tends to be sort of a downshift where it's like, am I really doing the right thing? Push past that, and then you know, take any failure. Don't look at failures, just look at them as opportunities to improve and do better and keep going.
Yeah, that's really great. Really great. Well, I'm sorry, someone about to say something? Nope. Okay. Well, I wanted to thank the three of you for joining today and sharing how you built this, how you built Eldorado. I see we have a question. So we have a few minutes. I will go to that. So we have a question from Joe Bonimo in New York. He says, I am pursuing a pre-prototype startup and have met with a number of HNI investors. Projecting revenue is difficult enough based on assumptions in emerging markets. But how do you calculate? What assumptions should you make to calculate the investment tail? How much more will it cost investors for additional phases, different than the burn rate, which is based on OPEX?
Wow.
Well, I'm not sure. Our situation is just a little bit different than this, because we're just dealing with such a traditional thing, which is tourism portal for a farming region. But we, you know, for projecting our revenues, and that was difficult, you know, we had to just base everything on what we know of traditional consumer behavior with our industry. And then just try to extrapolate it further. If we make access easier by a certain percent, we can expect those small increases. But you know, I think that Travis, you might be better to answer this question, because we just have such a traditional. We're talking farming here for us.
Yeah, but you make a really good point, Lexi. And I think looking to like industries or similar models is a good place to get a baseline. And echoing what you said, then capturing or projecting a conservative percentage of growth is potentially a good place to start. Russ, I think you're about to add.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's like a balance, especially for the tail part, because you want to be conservative, so you're not, you know, your numbers want to be conservative. So if you exceed them, you look like a hero. But at the same time, if you're not projecting high enough, like projected revenue, it may not look as interesting to the investor as well. So it's kind of a fine balance to do that, which, you know, I guess, you know, he's talking about emerging markets. So I'm not sure what it is, but, you know, just know your market, know your customer. Don't sell yourself short. I think, you know, it doesn't hurt to ask for more money, because all they're going to tell you is, well, we don't have that much. We'll just give you this much. But
right.
I mean, that's my philosophy. I always ask for the max. Whatever I can get, give me please as much as you can. and I need twice as much in 2 years to do the job. But
Right.
hopefully, on this job, they'll get some more too from their funding source. But yeah.
Yeah. Kara, anything to add?
I just think that, that question also leads itself as to why, back to your whole discovery process about why Amalgama was so great, is when you talk about these emerging markets and you go through this discovery phase with Amalgama, they help bring to light some of the, what your target demographic is actually looking for, to make sure that that product that you're developing is going to meet those needs that you are intending it to, so that you can get your funding. So I think that just that whole, again, that aspect with Amalgama really helps in, developing and making sure that you do have the investment needed to produce the product you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I will add, and maybe echo a little bit also what you were saying, Russ, is I agree 100%. Ask for as much as you possibly feel comfortable asking for. It takes a little guts, but definitely it's worth doing. And I think you probably encountered this with the type of funding. I'll make a conjecture you encountered this with the type of funding you sought, but I think it's good advice even for traditional funding. Is we used to build projections. Everyone talked about where are you going to show that hockey stick moment, that hockey stick growth, where you're going to go from here to there rapidly, and it's going to have that shape. We don't live in that world anymore. I don't even think investors believe that story anymore. I think they've told that story too many times. So they want to see slow and steady incremental growth, and an improvement that improves an existing market. So I think that's something you've done, is you've created a new way of doing things for the region, and attracting customers in a new modern way, which then it's very easy to speak about slow, steady, incremental growth when you're laying out those financials.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for the questions. I'll go back and say I want to thank you, the three of you, for joining us and talking with us about how you built the product. For anyone who's listening or watching the recording, it's eldoradowines.org. Definitely check out the platform. I know us at Amalgama are very proud of the work we've done together, and would love to also see more people visit the site, but also visit the region. And I want to thank you. If any closing remarks from the three of you, otherwise we'll say have a great day, and hopefully we will enjoy a glass of wine together very soon.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, Travis.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your time.